If you're having a bear of a day, let Bear TV take out your growl. Watch channel 54.4, Morgan State University. All right.
Greetings and welcome to the launch of Inside the SGJC Studio from the studios of the School of Global Journalism and Communication here at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. I am Dr. Jared Ball. With us today is Amanda Seales. She is a comedian, actress, scholar of African American Studies with a master's degree from Columbia University, shout out to Black Studies, and a DJ. Ms. Seales has been on every bit of major media and can herself be found at amandaseales.com and at Amanda Seales on Twitter. But we've asked her here today to be our first guest at Inside this SGJC Studio because of her incredible web-based weekly video show, Things I Learned This Week, which can be found at tilthisweek.com. Amanda Seales, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the show.
I had to keep myself from going, yeah.
Yeah, no, me too.
Our theme song.
Things I learned this week.
Yeah.
Exactly. So why don't we start there? Tell us a little bit about this show. As I said, you've been involved with a lot of different media. You've done a lot of different kinds of work, on stage, on screen, comedian, DJ, etc. Tell us about the origins of this particular program, and we'll talk a little bit how it gets put together.
Well, I do, like you said, I've been doing a lot of television for years, and I'm on VH1's Best Week Ever. I'm going to say that again. I'm on VH1's Best Week Ever, and I've been doing a lot of commentary for VH1 since 2007. And I hosted Master of the Mix on VH1. I was a VJ on MTV. So I'm not a stranger to the television space, but what I do find to be a stranger to the television space is like honest Black commentary about our Black popular culture, as well as in our voice. I think that there's always a certain kind of saccharine, like sugariness that they try to add, or the commentary is done so silly that it's hard to be taken seriously. Right. Like there isn't enough wit involved with the humor. So for Things I Learned This Week, I just I've come from the hip-hop side of things for years and years and years, and as I've become more focused on the comedy space and the personality space, I felt like I needed to create something that was really my home. You know, some really good friends of mine are the Breakfast Club on Power 105, and I actually heard some students talking about Envy, Angela, and Charlemagne, and I came up with them since I was 19, literally. And I actually was on their show earlier this year promoting my one-woman show, It's Complicated, which is a show about relationships. That's a whole other show. And when I was there and we were talking and I went home, I was like, you know, I'm so happy to see that they found their home. You know, like they found their space where they're at, where they're going to be at. And for me, I feel like I've been kind of like a foster child of the entertainment business where I've just kind of hopped around. And I realized, you know what, like you're going to need to create your own space because the way that I talk about things, like, they ain't gonna just let me in.
Now, when I've described your show to people who had not seen it, I found myself using this sort of catchphrase of referring to your show as a Black female daily show. Is that fair? Is that, you know, is there, because I see some of, because I see some of what you're trying to, you know, that you, like you said, you talk a lot about pop culture, you bring a comedic voice to it.
We're less political than Daily Show. I mean, I think that I love the Daily Show, so I'll take that as a compliment. But I think that we're kind of like if In Living Color and the Daily Show got married, you know, because we do want to have the intellectualism of being able to talk about like politics whenever we feel like it, and just you know, pique people's interest, because I think that's a lot of the thing that is missing in the Black community. I think there's either or. You're either like all pop culture or all politics, and we don't have a lot that lives in that middle space, which is where I feel most people live. Like they love Michelle and Barack, but they also know about Kim Ye, you know. And so we wanted to create something that could encourage those conversations from both sides.
And the Pan-Africanist in me, let me just back up for a quick second, as I was telling you on the way up here, you know, appreciates that you like to drop your Grenada background.
Lajab all Grenada massive. Yes.
So you bring sort of this African diaspora, you know, I feel at least African diaspora vibe to it, as well as being obviously a black woman. So, you know, and on the way in, you were even telling me some interesting things about that dynamic. Could we talk a little bit about that? You know, how you found, or how you're finding your place in this mix with this particular kind of show, being a black woman and a comedian and a DJ and so on and so forth.
Well, I know you didn't like the movie 12 Years a Slave.
No.
However, it was directed by a Grenadian. Booker. But
that's not why I didn't like it, though.
All right. But I will say that for the last 3 years, I've really been transitioning out of just the hip hop world because it just it didn't feel like home as much anymore. You know, like, I mean, even, I'm sad to say this, but I mean, Kendrick is really my own, my shining light. I mean, and there was a time where I had, you know, you had like options of dopeness, and I feel like those get smaller and smaller and smaller these days. And so it just started, and I changed my name from Amanda Diva back to Amanda Seals. I just wanted to be taken more seriously, per se. So I was actively trying to cross over and gain more of a welcoming from a white audience and just kind of hit into the mainstream. And I mean, I was really pursuing that space. And I saw 12 Years a Slave, and I literally left the theater and was like, and we're done. We need to, instead of crossover, we need to break through. And I've never, once I went to school and ended up creating my own major in African American Studies, because there wasn't one at SUNY Purchase at the time. There is now, so they got on that bandwagon. And then I got my master's at Columbia. Like, African American Studies has always been a natural space for me. Like, it's not like I'm trying to be into it. It's not like I'm, you know, studying theory. Like, I'm black. It's black studies. This makes sense. So for me to inhabit that space career-wise, it just feels natural in a way that things haven't felt in a while since hip-hop. You know, like when I was trying to kind of get when I was trying to get the mainstream audience's attention, it just seemed like I was really having to go outside of my comfort zone, and now it feels just right. And some people ask me, like, well, do you feel like you're going to limit your ability to advance in the entertainment business and career-wise by speaking too frankly on African-American life and whatnot? But I really just want to fix it for you.
I know, right? Good thing y'all love pre-recording.
The intention is to make the mic on the outside of your lapel.
I know, I'm trying to get that to actually happen.
Okay.
She's, you know, multi-talented and gifted.
We are.
We start from the question.
Oh.
Now we lost the piece.
Okay, this is what's happening. Wait. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. Where's the piece that fell?
Oh. She got it. Oh. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's the SGJC commandments. 10, 9, 8.
Okay.
11.
I did not know that he was beating the shit out of Lil' Kim.
Who?
Biggie.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I did not know
yeah.
That's why she was wearing the glasses.
That's a segment we could do.
She was getting mollywopped.
How many talented artists get passes on spousal abuse because of their talents?
Well, today, since I learned that, today someone put up a picture of Biggie and I was like, I can't even rock with you.
Who did you call out?
Big Pun. True. And Big Pun, that was on video. He pistol whipped his wife.
Wow.
Big Pun.
Okay. And Miles Davis. All right, I'm sorry.
Must be now.
What was the last question I asked?
Whether
about
you're
being
married
a
or
black
not,
woman
still.
in all of this? Okay. Okay.
I'll be more succinct.
So let's talk a little bit about the dynamics that you shared with me, you know, even just coming in today, a little bit about the dynamics of being a black woman on top of being an actress, a comedian, DJ, but being a black woman in this media environment, doing a show like Things I Learned This Week.
I mean, for the most part, as a black woman in this business, I've really realized you really just have to be a creative. Mm-hmm. Like, we just don't have the luxury of just showing up and hoping that people wrote for us. I mean, and a lot of times when you are auditioning for certain roles and whatnot, you're like, I wouldn't say it like that. You can tell that someone's writing like, well, this is what my friend Letitia sounds like, so I'm going to write like that, mm-hmm. you know? And even when I was doing MTV too, there were times where I would have to fact check as I'm reading the prompter. I'm like, no, A Tribe Called Quest is not from Brooklyn. Like, exactly, that's almost just like blasphemy. So you have to really be on top of your voice in a different way than I think other folks in the business have to. So that being said, once I saw 12 Years a Slave, which is not your favorite movie, though it is directed by a Grenadian, and we have covered that I am Grenadian, I really realized that I needed to stop trying to cross over and really focus on breaking through and doing it my own way, not just with my own creative outlets, but with my own voice. And I don't want to be known as just like the light-skinned chick with big hair. Mm-hmm. Why? Well, there's so many of us these days. You can't even tell the difference. So it's important, you know, also to delineate yourself mm-hmm. from the masses. And if I can be known as, you know, the super black voice, you know, then I'll be that. I mean, 50 Cent used to always call me Sister Soldier. Every time I would interview anyone from G-Unit, they'd be like, Sister Soldier! And I'm like, damn, am I really that black all the time? And it's like, well, no, it's just because have so much knowledge from my learning and I'm willing to share it. And
or maybe really, relative to what they're used to.
Real, that's what I'm saying, yeah. I'm willing to be like vocal about that. Mm-hmm. So I want to continue to do that and continue to be in these spaces. And it's such an honor for me to be here and talk about this little show that I just created on some like, well, we got to do something.
Well, I mean, I think, like I said, I've become a big fan. And in fact, one of the things, you know, extending this topic is that you covered recently is this controversy with Saturday Night Live and no black women until recently. And I saw this article on Slate.com talking about the historical problem of there being, with black actors, period, being on that show. And saying that one of the issues is, I think you just touched upon, was that there's a need for black talent to be assimilated, was the word they were using, with the white writers. That the white writers are not, you know, because they don't hang out with black people, they don't know black people.
They're like a perm. What do you mean?
So the few black people
I thought that
who
makes
show
your hair
up,
curly.
Exactly. So I love that piece you did, saying in preparation for what may be this onslaught of a few black actors and actresses, here's some things that you white writers might need to be prepared for.
Watch A Color Purple. You know, basic things. Basic. You too hot for to beat me. You need to be able to understand the reference. Like, I mean, and we were dealing with it satirically, but the idea of the show is also like to do things like that to spark the real conversation. Right? Because, and that's what satire is.
Did they ever contact you, by the way?
So the whole thing with SNL is I had auditioned for SNL before the We Need a Negro search began. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, I mean, in my defense, my tape was not up to snuff mm-hmm. for what I could do now, mm-hmm. right? However, Sashir and I, we were on a show, on a stand-up show together. And I was glad that they chose her. I think she was the right pick. You know, I think, especially for what they're going for, like they needed a certain type of black woman as well, right? Like, I just look too Spanish for what they were looking for, let's be real. And with my whole Anglo name, Amanda Seals, it's just too, like they were really like, we need to be super black.
So what, Maya Rudolph is like the end of the not
yeah,
black
and even Maya, it's like they weren't being questioned at the time, but like they didn't have anybody that could even play Michelle Obama. Like they don't even have anyone dark skinned enough to do that. without putting a man in a dress, you know? So, and I think they don't think of that sensibility because, right, black is black for them, right? So they had to also, at this point now, be like, okay, we need a special kind of black for what we're trying to fill in. But SNL also, when they did their We Need a Black Sister audition, I was in Grenada. So that's how that went down. And, you know, to be frank, they literally had one audition in New York, one audition in LA, and it was basically like whoever could be there is there. And I don't personally feel like that's how you really find the talent, you know?
If you're really interested in finding,
And but I think Sashir was perfect, even though they didn't use the greatest means, they did get the right person, I feel, because she comes from UCB, and UCB, the Upright Citizen Brigade, as well as Second City, as well as the Groundlings, like these are hubs for Saturday Night Live actors. Like they're improv, great crews, but they are very, very white. I'm talking like, if you look at UCB, on the wall of all the performers, Sashir is like a polka dot.
Right.
I mean, it's just...
Well, the Slate article talked about that and said, they even went back and interviewed Garrett Morris from the original cast, and he even said one of the things, he said a lot of it was my fault that I didn't do so well, because he said I don't socialize. I didn't hang out with the white writers. They don't know how to put things in my voice, and you know, and a lot of black people don't have this sustained interaction with white writers, and as you said, these are very white environments. So,
and this is a special kind of white writers. These are white boys from Harvard. They're like super, it's a whole kind of clique thing. So they have to let you in as well. It's not.
And that's
even
why Slate was
just...
saying that they picked this sister because she does come out of that.
Yeah,
so they were saying,
she's
you know,
Little
if
Rock
you don't
Nining
come out
for
of that,
us.
right.
She's Little Rock Nining. Like she's a perfect, like she's perfect for this because she has a sensibility enough to speak from, you know, like sincere blackness and not trying to assimilate, but she also understands that dynamic.
Well, and again, so a lot of what I appreciate about what you do with Things I Learned This Week, you do in about 10-minute weekly episodes, right? They're about 10 minutes in length. But you do cover a lot of different things. Like you said, you touch on some politics, you touch on pop culture, you do offer a particular perspective. And I think you've developed characters that help flesh out, that appear here and there and help flesh things out. That I feel that is not that this was your intent to begin with, or you know, at least this specifically, but that do address this issue that Slate.com is talking about with white writers writing for black comedians, and space being developed for, in your case, a black woman, but other sort of kinds of voices that are not necessarily assimilated into a white Harvard college boy.
Well, when Jerry Seinfeld says diversity, he doesn't care about diversity.
Yeah, you mentioned that,
I love Jerry, but no. Like when you're in his position, I feel like you have to care. Like I know when you're that powerful and you have that much money and you're that much of an influencer, you now have responsibility, you know? And this is a space that I'm not saying he needs to have a whole bunch of black folks on his show, because that's my whole thing. I wasn't saying that Seinfeld necessarily needed to have a whole bunch of black folks. I mean, Seinfeld was great for what Seinfeld was. Part of the humor is the fact that they are
very white,
you know, and in a vacuum.
And it makes sense that Michael Richards would come out of that environment.
There's that.
And why they would welcome him back in.
Right.
Which also bothered me, but that's a whole other thing. But,
yeah, it's a whole other thing.
But well, speaking of that though, one thing that I just mentioned this, that one thing that I noticed in Seinfeld that I also liked was that A, they didn't falsify the diversity, and B, if you watch the show, almost every so-called person of color that enters that show does so in an antagonistic way. There's hostility with these characters. They're often not friendly.
Well, they're also stereotypes. They're also like they're done as characters. Right. Like Abu Bat, you know, oh, no, Jerry. Jerry's a bad man, you know, all that. Like, they make a point.
That's right.
You know, even when Jerry was dating the Native American woman. And then
it became a whole thing.
It's always, anytime someone is in the show and they are of a different race, that's what their purpose is.
And the brother from the Caribbean who oversleeps and misses his track meet.
Exactly. And then ping the Chinese delivery boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always related to that. But there just has to be more work created in this space. And that's why I love, like, you know, seeing Issa Rae creating and, you know, like Nicole Byer and Sashir, they have a web series that they've created, and you know, there's Homie Love a Friend, and you know, there's just a lot of, I see movement in that in this space, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Speaking of this space, I wanted to ask you about the media environment that we find ourselves in, and the explosion of the internet, which is for some a playing field leveler and brings new levels of freedom and opportunity, and for others it brings a level of critique, or a level or encourages a level of criticism about what is not being done. And I bring that up to say that, you know, because I saw your piece with Mark Lamont Hill on Huffington Post Live about World Star Hip Hop. And the discussion was, you know, is World Star, you know, to what extent is World Star a problem in promoting, in this particular instance, violence against black women? And I wondered if you could just recount.
Did you see how crazy that interview was?
I did see how crazy.
I hope
that
y'all
interview
go and
was.
watch that interview and see how these brothers played themselves. Good
So
Lord.
Rhyme Fest was involved with this interview.
Yes.
And this other professor of sociology, Professor Lee, I believe his name is, were I thought problematically juxtaposed to what you were trying to do, and particularly Professor Cooper were trying to say, which I did appreciate about what was happening with World Star. But
it just seems so basic. It just seems so 1 + 1.
Right. So, well, just for our audience here, what
Was the discussion?
was the discussion, and what do you think about World Star and its prevalence for, you know, in terms of younger generations' interaction with popular media?
I mean, the conversation was about, you know, like you said, is it a problem that these images are being put on, you know, a platform, on such a wide, large platform, and does it in any way encourage this behavior? Because when we see a lot of these videos on World Star of like fights going on at schools, et cetera, like it begs the question, like, okay, so how much of this was created because you knew it was going to go on World Star, right? And the direct question that Mark asked was about the specific violence between women, because I think we're pretty much used to seeing violence between men, at least fighting between men, even in boxing, right? Like there's no HBO primetime sellout women's boxing, right? So that's kind of expected, even with football, like there's a certain masculinity there, but seeing the growing number of images of women hitting each other, whether it be on VH1 or Bravo or now World Star, it begs the question of, is this cool? Like, why is this okay? And when you see some of these fights on World Star, it is clear that they did this for sensationalism, right? Like they set it up to tape it and then to try and, you know, get some internet fame or whatever for it, right? And the brothers in the conversation were like, nah, I mean, we don't need to discuss women getting in violence because everyone's in violence. So why do we even need to specify that women are involved in violence? Because, I mean, men are fighting every day too, so why is that even a discussion? And it's like, if you're a sociology professor, I'm wondering what social sphere are you living in where this is the norm, that women are throwing the blows and we're encouraging, like this is not, that's not a feminism I'm supporting.
Right, and too much of their conversation was also saying, well, violence predates World Star, so why should we have any kind of focus on World Star at all?
And the reality is that if you build it, they will come. Like that's, I really believe, a real thing. And World Star, don't get me wrong, it's not all bad. Very few things are all bad, you know, but I think that it does encourage this behavior by the fact that there is a platform. And if there wasn't a platform, it's one less reason. Right. That's how I feel. I'm not saying they deserve all, you know, the brunt, or saying like, you know, Cats wasn't fighting until World Star. That's BS. But I do feel that, you know, it's a slippery slope. And I've been involved, and I mentioned this in the interview, I've been involved on the web with being attacked by the web and being objectified sexually, and even so far as violent. I mean, I've had people leave comments like, I want to scalp you and throw you down an elevator shaft and ejaculate in your eye sockets. I mean, this is a comment, like, I'll never forget that I read that and that it was encouraged by the person who, it was their site, and they encouraged it. They said, you know, does anyone else want to get at Amanda before I post something else? You know, so I just say that to say that the web is a it's a scary place, it's a great place, it's a very unpoliced space. But when it comes to black folks, I do feel like we always need to have a heightened sense of awareness and understand that we, like Du Bois said, are always political.
I would just want to say very quickly that with the increased attacks on net neutrality and corporate mergers and takeovers, the relative freedom of the internet is going to be even more attacked. And I think that shows like yours need to be recognized as something that needs to be saved in this internet environment that will become increasingly policed as we move forward. So we only have a few minutes left before we start talking to our audience here. And I wanted to bring up some of what I found were some of the classic moments on your show.
I'm curious.
So I want to start with the one that I saw just most recently where you all did a rendition of Boys to Men.
So hard to say
goodbye. And you, you turned it into It's So Hard to See You Banging a White Man. What was that sketch about, and what points are you trying to make with that particular remix?
Let me just say this. Sometimes we aren't really trying to like make such a political.
Right.
Sometimes we are just having fun with like something that's real. And it's real because I know as a single black woman, a lot of my homeboys are like, I think it's time. Think it's time to start looking at the white men. And I'm like, is that a thing? Like that you have to make the cognizant decision to do so? I mean, I said to someone, I said, you know, I kind of feel like it's like my moral responsibility to like stick with the brothers. And the same person was a brother, and they were like, I don't know if you want to wave that flag. They gonna burn that flag. And I'm like, no. So we were trying to come up with something we could do for Valentine's Day, and one of the writers was like, black women that got away. He literally threw it like that. He was like, black women that got away, which leads me to believe that he's thinking about this on a regular basis. And he's like, no. And so that just turned into, well, what can we do that doesn't involve me having to like get an instrumental and whatnot? So it's like, oh, Boys to Men. And then, you know, there was just so many examples.
Right.
So many examples of like before and after. It's like even Stevie J, even Maximilian, whoever the hell. You know, there's Robin Givens and Mike Tyson. Robin Givens and Brad Pitt. There's Halle Berry and David Justice. Halle Berry and there's everybody else, right? And now Halle Berry and a series of white men. You know, like it seems like there's a point where a lot of these women were like, and we're done.
Right.
Like Venus, Serena, same thing. And the point of the video was also for brothers to like laugh at it, but also be like,
what's going
that
on?
is some shit now. You know? Because it's real. And in the black community, and I know a lot of the folks and a lot of the women in this audience will admit to this, a lot of the brothers have increasingly become indoctrinated to this idea of commitment is not important, that, you know, y'all just need to share. And it's better if we're just all, you know, it's this idea of freedom, as if you can't be free if you are committed to somebody, which, you know, divide and conquer seem to have really worked. Because if you look in the white community, they're still rocking with, let's create legacy.
Right.
Let's use family to create foundation to build on. And I think that's something that we in the black community need to really get back to doing.
So we'll probably pick up some of this with the Q&A part of our conversation, but one that I wanted to definitely bring up and appreciate, to make sure to share my appreciation of, is that in the absence of Dave Chappelle, I've found that you are one of the most consistent and funny reminders of R. Kelly being trifling. That you know,
he literally says in a song, so show me some ID before we get knee deep. I ain't never had anybody ask me to show them ID to prove my age, because that wasn't in question. Y'all need to check yourselves if you bought Black Panthers. I'm just saying.
And there was some recent stuff on the web where some journalists who had done their homework exposed all that really R. Kelly has done and been accused of doing.
12 pending cases. 12.
Where young high school kids knew to expect that he would be hanging out at their parking lot and that they could have time with him.
I don't see nothing wrong.
So I appreciate that in the absence of Dave Chappelle, you've stepped in there and said, let me not let you forget.
I just want us to hold each other accountable. You know, I just want us to hold each other accountable. That's all.
All right. Well, that's very good. All right. So look. Well, so as we transition.
Wait, you just transitioned.
I'm
You
just
went from
transitioning.
very to. All right. So look.
I'm new to this. This is not my thing.
That was
I do
funny.
radio where everything's so much easier and less stressful. But yeah.
Check it.
So
Word.
no, I appreciate that. So that is, let that be a lesson, everybody.
No,
Check
that
your
was great. I'm
transitions.
just saying it was funny. I was like, and we're here.
So, but as we do
paper.
transition to in this inaugural edition of Inside the SGJC Studio with Amanda Seals, we wanted to definitely open it up to let our studio audience raise questions or comments that you might like to have her answer. And step up to the mic, step to the white piece of paper that we know you know where it is.
That white piece of paper. Hello.
You mentioned the Breakfast Club. I watched that the little scene of it. Now, are you still doing the shows that you were doing, that you were pretty much promoting on the Breakfast Club?
Yeah, we actually just did one for Valentine's Day, and now we're looking to do more. You know, when you're doing your own stuff, you have control, but you don't always have money. So, but this one woman show is something that people seem to really like, because relationships are also something that people all can relate to. So we're really working to do more. I would love to bring it to Morgan or to Baltimore, but yes, we're still doing it.
Did you find a man compatible for you? Because you told me, well, during the interview you said that, he wasn't up there on that level, and Angela Yee said you was out there circling.
I was circling like the airport. You know, and I got some heat from my ex about that, and I was like, I didn't even drag you, bro. Like, I could have dragged you, and I just kind of dragged you. But like I said about being held accountable, like, you know why we ain't together. So I got the emails. You know why we ain't together. Wow. But I think I suffer from a lot of the same concerns that a lot of independent, I'm not even going to make it about black, but like a lot of independent women are concerned about, which is like, how do you meet somebody that doesn't feel intimidated by that, and that is on the flip side not trying to find themselves through your independence, right? And I think what's great actually that I've seen a lot from a lot of younger brothers though is there is more of an understanding of the change in gender roles. I think for a lot of folks, they just are used to like, well, no, the man does this and the woman does this. And as we've seen time go on, there seems to be a lot more willingness to understand that like, I may make more money than you, but that doesn't mean that, you know, I don't respect you or admire you as my man. And I know for me, like, I'm superwoman all damn day. I don't want to wear my cape in the house. So, you know, there's that balance that a lot of us are looking for. I'm going to keep hope alive. But I think the other thing, too, which a lot of men don't understand, is that 30 may be the new 20 socially, but biologically, 30 is still 30 for women. So right now, you may not be thinking about your eggs or about your fertility because you're 20-something, you thinking about, like, when's the next party? But once you turn 30 as a woman, there is an actual real-life concern of, like, okay, I've got 10 years of healthy baby-making body to do my best with, and you have to like be aware of that, which sucks, by the way. But no, I'm still super single and I hate every minute of it.
That was it.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Yeah,
I hope so, because questions are fun.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we definitely want to get some questions and some conversation about the process that goes into making things I learned this week.
I was going to ask, my name's Lamar, peace. You were mentioning hip-hop and everything, and you know how you DJ and everything and some of your frustrations with hip-hop. My question was, I guess, could you elaborate a little bit on some of those frustrations, what you think hip-hop needs right now, because you were speaking about Kendrick, and a little bit, if you could, about the Jordan Davis situation, and, you know, because they was listening, you know, to their music and their hip-hop and everything. So just some things, if you could touch on those.
Sure. With the Jordan Davis situation, I mean, I'm from Florida, so, you know, I'm accustomed to an extremely loud music and 808s coming from vehicles. Does anyone know who Currency is? So, when I was in New Orleans 2 weeks ago, I've done records with Currency, like that's the homie, but I haven't seen him in a long time, and I never end up seeing him in New Orleans. So when I went to New Orleans, I was like, dog, like we gotta link up. This fool pulls up in a drop top lowrider on switches, which I have only seen in music videos. And the music was so loud, it was like serenading Canal Street, right? And we're like, I did 3-wheel motion, by the way. We were like, but you know, and so like, but we were having a blast, right? But I feel like that's the type of situation where if the wrong person saw that, you know, like in a Jordan Davis scenario, they may feel some type of way. I hate that that's an actual thing now. That's some type of way. And with the Jordan Davis scenario, it really saddens me because, like, I don't even think that should be a part of the conversation. Like, if they want to play their music in their car, like, they're in their car. They don't live next door to you. Right. Like, you're not there permanently. They're not even on the train. When I'm on the train, I get annoyed when people are playing music loud because we're in a shared space, right? And it's just a consideration thing. We're not in a shared space. We're in a parking lot. I'm in my whip. You're in your whip. And I think what frightens me the most about the Jordan Davis trial is people's willingness to just be like, well, at least he going to jail. At least he going to jail. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there isn't some level of victory to the fact that he is going to jail, but it's a Pyrrhic victory. Do you know what that word means? A Pyrrhic victory is a victory where you may have won, but you suffered extreme loss in order to win that victory, you know? And I mean, like when we look at the victory of emancipating slaves, look how many centuries this had to go on for us to say, triumph! And it's like, is it really? It's not. It's what it should be. And so in that scenario, I feel like as black folks, you know, we really need to stop scrambling for scraps. And I think that the work that has to be done amongst all of us is really encouraging strength. Because I won't even say ancestors, it's like our grandparents were facing like clans of Klansmen, you know? Like they were putting themselves in physical harm because it meant something to the fact that there is justice that needs to be served for our people. And these days, I don't feel like we have that courage. I think that we are so willing to just be like, nah, let's just keep it chill. We've made it this far. And when I look at the Jordan Davis trial, oh Lord. When I look at the Jordan Davis trial, I say to myself, you know, I'm really proud of the folks who have been able to have the presence of mind. Even Don Lemon and his whole makeup wearing self. Don Lemon even was like, this is preposterous. Right. Because how do you get away with shooting somebody because you didn't like their music? You were scared. And for the brothers in the room, we all know, like, being black is a crime. Like, that's literally what this says. As for hip hop, we can connect it to that to say that, like, our music doesn't relate as much as I feel it should. Like, the true sense of our social space. I feel like I'm not expecting every song to be on some Dead Prez level type, you know, message, but so much is just like not even lyrically worthy. You know, even when the Locks are just rapping about shooting dudes and robbing, they did it with wit. You know, like at least there's some there's some artistic merit to it, you know, that speaks to our narrative. And I really would like to one day teach a class, Morgan State, on the rap album as a novel. Because I feel that the rap album is he clapped for it. I feel like the rap album is the continuation of the black voice telling our own story, which is imperative that we do. And I don't feel like we're doing enough of that in the mainstream. Of course, there's gonna always be cats that are getting it, you know, but these days, like, when Nicki is putting up a picture of Malcolm X with Looking Ass Nigga as the title of the single, you think to yourself, like, how did you even get so far to make it to Instagram? Like, how did that even get that far without anybody saying, I don't know, might not be a good idea? But it's because things are so willy-nilly. And
well, I actually wanted to bring that up and ask you about that, because one of the things, you know, if I could, you know.
Did that answer your questions?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things that I always struggle with is this conversation around the difference between, for lack of a better term, mainstream versus non-mainstream music, because there's more powerful and brilliant rap music being made today than ever. It's just harder to
it's harder to find.
To find. So when I heard you say in one of your episodes that like you were done, except for Kendrick, I was a little like, well, you know.
You have to understand though, like when I say I'm done, what I'm saying is like I come from hosting on MTV and being able to interview Nas and Jay, but still have to interview
And you
Jimmy.
said Kendrick was better than Rakim.
I never said that.
You put your hand above
No,
Rakim.
stop.
You did put your
misread what
okay,
happened.
all right, I was struggling with that.
Said,
I was like, wait a minute.
I said on a rating scale.
From Silk the
From
Shocker.
Silk the Shocker to Rakim.
And your hand went above
because of the
Rakim.
editing.
Okay, just checking. Okay, all right. I had to ask you about it though. I was like, I
appreciate your attention to detail, brother.
Like,
I appreciate
her hand went
your
above
attention to detail.
Rakim.
No, he's not above Rakim. But I mean,
let's stop there.
there's differences, like, and that's part of us being old heads, though. Like, we can't also stay married to the fact, because, like, let's be real, like, Kendrick has far more versatility in his cadence than Rakim. He does. Rakim has a very specific kind of flow that's why we know that when we listen to Summertime by Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff, you can tell that Rakim wrote it because that is his flow. Here it is, a groove slightly transformed, just a bit of the break from the norm. That's Rakim. You didn't know that, did you?
I did know that.
Knowledge. And
I did know that.
but you hear it, you hear it when you think of a Rakim verse, and it's, it's the same type of flow. Spit a Rakim verse.
So we got.
Spit a Rakim verse.
Wait a minute.
If you're gonna ride for Rakim, you got to be able to pull it out.
Because I'm used to being on radio. I'm stuck.
I ain't no joke. I used to let the mics.
Okay, but.
So I'm just saying that I don't think Kendrick is better than Rakim necessarily per se, but there are things that he is better at Rakim at.
Okay.
Because when you hear rigor mortis, come on, fam, bars with a Z. I will ride for Kendrick all day long, by the way, because I know him and he's actually a good dude.
Okay, no question.
Can we get one more question? Even if we're not on camera?
When we're not on camera, definitely. But I think
you have to wrap it.
I think we need to wrap it up.
Let's formally wrap it up.
I did want to. We will have to do some extended conversation because we didn't really get to the method by which you produce things I learned this week, and I wanted to really engage the students on that. So we'll talk a little bit about that off the air. But I definitely want to thank you, Amanda Seals, for joining us on this inaugural edition of Inside the SGJC Studio. And we'll be back with another edition before too long. And as Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Thanks for joining us.